evening. I'm Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, we tackle the issues, we clarify matters, and we get on point. The Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has submitted the document containing the specific charges against former President Rodrigo Duterte, who is facing crimes against humanity. This will guide all parties in the conduct of the trial. Meantime, prosecutors filed another batch of evidence against Duterte in time for his confirmation of charges hearing slated next month. Let's get on point with the Executive Director of the Center for International Law and an accredited lawyer of the International Criminal Court, or ICC, Attorney Gilbert Andres. Attorney, good evening to you. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, Pinky, and to your televiewers, straight from The Hague, the Netherlands.
Yes, I wanted to actually start with that to give the audience a bit of information where you are at the moment. You've been in The Hague for almost a year. Would that be true?
Yes, Pinky, I've been here in the Netherlands so that I can prepare better for this case. So I've been here since last year.
And exactly what are you doing, or how are you part of the case?
Well, we've been representing victims of the Philippine War on Drugs since 2016. In fact, we represented them before the Philippine Supreme Court. We challenged actually the constitutionality of the Tokhang, Oplan Tokhang, and the Oplan Double Barrel before the Philippine Supreme Court, which is still pending before the Philippine Supreme Court. And we've also represented victims before the different processes of the ICC.
How many victims are you representing, Attorney?
Well, unfortunately, Pinky, that's the question I cannot really divulge the answer to, because the context is it's an international crime that is being charged against Mr. Duterte, and due to the heightened security risk, the victims cannot really be disclosed, especially the number of victims.
Really? Lalabas ho ba siya eventually if a trial actually happens? Will we be able to find out during the course of the trial, again if it happens, how many victims will form part of this trial against the former president?
Well, there will be emblematic cases. In fact, we already have a view of the emblematic cases. There were 43 in the application for arrest warrant. And then in the document containing charges, we will also see the emblematic cases that will show the crimes against humanity. Actually, Pinky, it was filed by the Office of the Prosecutor last Friday, July the 4th, except that due to the heightened security risks, there are processes called redaction.
Opo.
So I think it's still being redacted. That's why there's still no publicly available redacted version of the document containing charges.
I understand that I was looking into this, and you were quoted as saying that a couple of days ago, in time, this should be part or parcel. This is something we can look at in the website of the ICC. And upon checking, wala pa rin po akong nakita.
Yes, it's true, Pinky. I actually said that. But we also received confirmation that it's already been filed, except that it's now in the process of being redacted because there might be some sensitive info, such as the name of the potential in-person witnesses, as well as the documents that might actually identify some victims or witnesses.
I see. Attorney, let's try to understand the stage of what is the right term? This stage of the pre-trial? Would it be called a pre-trial already?
Yes, you're right on that, Pinky. This is still the pre-trial. We're not yet on the trial stage. And what will happen on September 23 will be the confirmation of charges. What will be determined on September 23 during the confirmation of charges is whether or not this pre-trial should proceed to trial proper.
Okay.
So it's correct to say that we are still on pre-trial stage.
Which actually is a little bit confusing for me, because I do understand this is something we've been talking about in the past through various interviews, that September 23 will possibly be the time we will see the former president again since March. And on September 23, that will be the confirmation of charges. As a lay person, I would think that yung confirmation of charges ay ikukumpirma ang charges laban sa dating Pangulo. Pero actually, this is the stage where it is going to be discovered if the trial shall proceed. Tama ho, Attorney?
Yes, Pinky. In fact, you're not alone, Pinky, in that confusion, since even lawyers find it confusing because this is a special litigation practice. This is international criminal law, and it provides. It's actually under the Rome Statute, and if you look at the Rome Statute, it's actually an innovation that there are confirmation of charges. It's before trial, so that the court will determine whether or not there is reasonable basis, there is grounds to believe that the charges should be confirmed and should proceed to trial. So it's less than a trial, okay, but it's more than the reading of the charges.
Yeah.
It's the burden of the prosecutor actually to show that this charges should really be continued on to trial proper.
Yeah, that's actually what I thought. I thought it would be the reading of the charges because when one says confirmation of charges, ibig sabihin, uulitin o kukumpirmahin ang kaso laban kay dating Pangulo, which of course we know is an overarching theme, which is crimes against humanity. I'm going to get to that in a while, sir. Let's talk about the stage of the pre-trial as we speak. The ICC prosecutor, as you mentioned a while ago, has submitted documents containing the charges against former President Duterte. What exactly does this mean? That the documents containing the charges, hindi ho ba ang charge sa kanya ay crimes against humanity?
You're right on that, Pinky, but as to the specifics, whether or not it's only murder of crimes against humanity, or will it include arbitrary detention, illegal imprisonment? Will it include rape and other sexual and gender-based violence? Will it include torture, or will it include other inhumane acts? That's still to be seen when we will read the document containing charges. So, Pinky, the document containing charges, this is really the formal charges against Mr. Rodrigo Duterte. And if we try to compare and contrast it with our Philippine criminal domestic proceedings, dito kasi sa atin, sa Philippines, ang nauna po ay yung information. It's filed before the court, and then the court will issue an arrest warrant, and then the suspect or accused is arrested. Here in the ICC, it's the reverse. First, there's the application for arrest warrant, and that application was actually granted, and there was an arrest warrant. Then Mr. Duterte was legally arrested based on that arrest warrant by the ICC. Then after that, that's when the prosecutor will file the document containing charges.
It's good you actually talked about that because as I was looking into how the process is in the ICC, it's the opposite of what we know. Again, Attorney, obviously you are correct saying that sa atin po, kailangan muna, parang baliktad nga po sa ICC. Sa ICC, nauuna ang, as we've seen, nauuna ang
arrest warrant.
Opo, tapos
and then the
aarestuhin, tapos yung charges po.
Maybe the context, Pinky, is that this is an international crime. So this is not a domestic crime. And there's actually a need to ensure that the suspect can appear personally before the ICC. That's why it's the arrest warrant which is issued first, and the arrest itself before the document containing charges are filed.
And actually, I was also reading about that. It's also an arrest warrant that happens first is because the suspect or the respondent might be anywhere in the world. Kaya nauuna po yung arrest warrant. Okay. So, balikan po natin, Attorney, no? So, si ICC Prosecutor, ang ginawa po at this stage was that sinabmit po sa korte yung mga, tama ho ba, yung specific charges against former President Rodrigo Duterte?
Yes. It was actually filed. It was also filed as well as inter partes, meaning to say the defense was also provided, as well as the OPCV. That's the Office of the Public Counsel for Victims, who's temporarily designated as the one representing the victims as of now. So these are the only parties who know about the document containing charges, as well as the pretrial chamber.
Okay.
So let's see, let's await the publicly redacted version.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna see on the website. Again, for context of understanding this, meron pong prosecutor, yung po si ICC prosecutor, siya po ang nag-submit nitong charges against the former president in detail. Siguro over and above the overarching charge of crimes against humanity, which is the defense will be given a copy, and the OPCV. OPCV po, ito po yung lawyer ng mga biktima. And
For now,
at this
temporarily,
point, yes,
until the
it's not
legal
you.
representative it's not me, it's an in-house office of the ICC. Until the legal representative for victims is formally appointed by the pretrial chamber 1.
Let me ask you that, Attorney, kailan ho ba maa-appoint yung legal representative for the victims? At what stage
Well,
does this happen?
The registry will actually submit a report to the pretrial chamber. In fact, the dates are available. They will submit it on August 20, wherein they will actually give a report, a summary of their consultations with the different victims groups, as well as who are the lawyers that were chosen by the different victims groups. So this will be submitted on August 20. So we expect that there will be a appointment after August 20, maybe last week of August, first week of September.
Prior to the confirmation of charges.
Yes, prior to the confirmation of charges.
And is there just going to be one representative for the victims?
Well, let's just say there's one team, and this team at this pretrial stage is composed of the legal representative for victims, a case manager, as well as a field assistant. So these are the composition of the team. So it's one team, but it can be composed of other lawyers within that one team.
But is it most likely that the legal representative of the victims would be one of you guys?
Yes, as long as that person is actually admitted to the ICC list of counsels.
And
there are 5 Filipinos.
And you are an ICC-accredited lawyer?
Yes, I'm one of those ICC-accredited lawyers, as well as my law partner, Atty. Joel Butuyan.
Yes, kayo pong dalawa. So the likelihood, parang that is a prerequisite to be able to represent the victims, is to be an accredited lawyer of the ICC.
Yes, Pinky.
All
so,
right.
pwede dalawa kami, ni Atty. Joel.
Opo. At pwede din po kayong dalawang magsama as part of the team.
Pwede po yun.
All right. We're just going to take a very short break. We'll be back with the Executive Director of the Center for International Law and an accredited lawyer of the International Criminal Court, Attorney Gilbert Andres. Stay tuned. This is On Point. You're watching On Point, still with us, the Executive Director of the Center for International Law and an accredited lawyer of the International Criminal Court, Attorney Gilbert Andres. Attorney Andres, I just wanted to do a follow-up note with regards to the documents containing the charges that was submitted by the prosecution. Do these documents, at any time in the past or very recently, did the prosecutor or their investigators seek help from any one of you, Attorney Butuyan, or even that you know of, and even the victims, to be able to substantiate the kind of charges that they submitted to the pretrial chamber?
Actually, this is also the point, once again, Pinky, that I cannot disclose. So as some people say, I can neither confirm nor deny. But what I can say is that the Office of the Prosecutor, based on its prosecutorial discretion and duty under the Rome Statute, has gathered enough evidence to actually show that these charges should proceed to trial. So whether the evidence is testimonial in terms of witnesses, whether it's documentary or electronic evidence, they have gathered that.
But this could also be born out of the initial information that was filed before the ICC. Hindi ho ba way back? What started this all?
Oh yes, you're correct on that, Pinky, because in fact, the Office of the Prosecutor publicly announced, I think, sometimes February of 2018, that it's opening a preliminary examination. And different CSOs, NGOs, INGOs have submitted documents to the ICC. And there are also publicly available evidence. So all of this collection of evidence has been actually used by the OTP, including, I think, even the Quadcom. The evidence and
From
documents
2018, no, Attorney? That's
from
what I wanted
2018.
to kind of understand. Na lahat itong nakalap na impormasyon must have been from way back 2018 till the Quadcom hearing that some were presupposing that could have been used by the OTP or the Office of the Prosecutor. All right, moving on. What about the interim release? Was there a point that the victims were asked about their response or reaction or any manifestation statement to the interim release filed by the defense?
You're right on that, Pinky, because the victims actually conveyed their views and concerns with regards to the application for interim release. We pass it on to the relevant office under the ICC. And in fact, the victims really were they were really actually shocked. Nayanig po sila nung na-file po yung application for interim release. But I also want to emphasize that it's merely an application, but it's still it will still be up to the pretrial chamber based on their sound discretion, whether or not to grant it or to deny it. And we hope that the pretrial chamber will actually deny it.
I know there's no telling, Attorney, but if you were to, what are the possibilities, I guess, of the interim release decision being handed down prior to the confirmation of charges on September 23? Sa palagay niyo ho ba mangyayari ito bago yung confirmation of charges? Sa palagay niyo ho ba mangyayari ito during the confirmation of charges, or sa palagay niyo ho ba after the confirmation of charges?
Well, we hope that it will be released before the confirmation of charges so that wala nang mga agam-agam pa. And in fact, if just based on jurisprudence of the ICC, we expect it to be actually dismissed, to be denied, because no application for interim release has been granted by the chambers of the ICC.
Has there been none?
If the charge is under Article 5, what's Article 5? Crimes against humanity, crimes against humanity, genocide, war crimes, crimes of aggression. It has only been granted on 2 instances, but for offenses against the administration of justice under Article 70. And that's not the case here for Mr. Duterte.
So, ibig sabihin po, wala pa pong pinapayagan na magkaroon po ng release na na-charge na crimes against humanity. Would that be correct, sir?
Wala pa, Pinky. Kaya based on the jurisprudence, we hope na madi-deny po itong application for interim release.
What about a jurisprudence? What does that say with regards to a decision? Is a decision made prior to the confirmation of charges, or is it made during or after?
Well, it can be before. In fact, there's also another pending issue, Pinky, the jurisdictional challenge. Actually, that's what we are really monitoring because it's the first issue, whether or not the pretrial chamber has jurisdiction. So we also expect that to be decided upon maybe last week of August, first week of September, but we still have to see that.
Let's siguro list down, Attorney, yung mga pending. There's a question on jurisdiction that the ICC has no jurisdiction over the former president.
Yes.
And then
there's a question.
Sorry, sir, go ahead.
There's the jurisdictional challenge, and then there's the application for interim release. Fortunately, there was another application, the application for disqualification of 2 judges, which was denied by the plenary of judges last week. So there are 2 pending issues right now.
So yun po yung tatlo na isa po ay nasagot na last week, and even the disqualification of those 2 judges, one of 3, umabot po yun sa tinatawag na plenary of judges, to which my understanding was it was a unanimous decision not to grant this disqualification being asked by the defense on grounds that there is no bias. There's no actual bias.
Yes, sir. You're right on that, Pinky. So we're still awaiting for the decision on the two other issues.
Jurisdiction and interim release.
Mhm.
Attorney, yung question on jurisdiction, before anything else or before even the confirmation of charges, does that need to be decided on prior to the September 23 confirmation of charges? Or can that also happen after the confirmation of charges?
I think it's logical to be decided before the confirmation of charges because remember, jurisdiction is the power and authority of the court to hear and decide cases.
Mhm.
So that should be the primordial issue. And any court, for that matter, anywhere in the world, has the competence to decide on its competence. In French, competence de la competence. In German, competence, competence. So that's the power and authority of the pretrial chamber that is now deciding whether or not it has jurisdiction.
Why would the question on jurisdiction be brought up or be decided on, rather, not be brought up? That is the right of the defense. But why would it be decided on by the pre-trial chamber who actually, please correct me if I'm wrong, sir, agreed to issue an arrest warrant against the former president? Ibig ko sabihin, kung ikaw ang nag-issue ng pumayag na magkaroon ng arrest warrant, bakit magkakaroon ng desisyon even for that court to say wala kaming jurisdiction, kayo nga ang nagbigay ng arrest warrant?
Well, it's always contingent, Pinky. Any arrest warrant is always contingent on any challenge to the jurisdiction, which is a separate issue. And in fact, the defense filed this jurisdictional challenge. So it's incumbent upon the pretrial chamber to determine once and for all whether or not it has jurisdiction. And our position is that indeed it has jurisdiction, Pinky, and it's very rare. In fact, it has not happened that a international criminal tribunal has divested itself of jurisdiction.
Has it
It has
happened
never
before, though, that they actually
has
said they
never
have no
happened.
jurisdiction?
It was an issue in Prosecutor versus Eichmann in the Jerusalem Criminal Court. It was dismissed. The jurisdictional challenge was denied. It was challenged in the ICTY, International Criminal Court for the former Yugoslavia. It was denied. It was challenged before the Special Tribunal for Lebanon. It was also denied. So if you look at the precedents of the International Criminal Tribunals, we hope and we expect this also to be denied by the pretrial chamber.
Basically, you're saying all questions on jurisdiction have been denied by the ICC.
By the ICC as well as by other international criminal tribunals.
All right. Just on a last note, Attorney, the health of the former president, sinabi po ng kanyang asawa, si Elizabeth Zimmerman, na butot balat na lang daw si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. In a situation like this, should an interim release even be considered?
We're trying to be very technical about it. The health of the suspect is not one of the grounds whether or not to grant a interim release. In fact, the reason for that is that the ICC provides all the necessary facilities as well as access to medical facilities because it gives a primordial respect for the health of the suspect. So it should not be a primordial reason.
All right. In terms of, I guess, how you are describing it, in terms of medical needs, kumpleto po sila doon.
Yes, Karen. In fact, it was shown when Mr. Duterte arrived. He was
Pinky,
directly
sir.
actually. Sorry,
Pinky.
Pinky. Sorry, Pinky. My apologies.
No
In fact,
problem.
Pinky, Mr. Duterte was immediately, he was immediately escorted to a medical facility in Rotterdam.
All right. So I guess from here on, Attorney, the next time we'll probably see the former president is on September 23, whether there is a decision on jurisdiction by the ICC pretrial chamber. The only time we will see him again, from my understanding, is on the confirmation of charges come September 23.
Yes, Pinky, that will be September 23. That's a Tuesday. It's until Friday of that week.
The confirmation of charges is going to be on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 4 na araw po.
Yes, Pinky. In fact, the schedule is already available online in the
Okay.
website online.
All right, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Executive Director of the Center for International Law and an accredited lawyer of the International Criminal Court, Attorney Gilbert Andres. Thank you, sir. We'll speak to you again.
Thank you, Pinky, and mabuhay tayo.
That's On Point. Join us again tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. here on BNC, the Billionario News Channel. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for watching.